In this episode of the Ear Scouts podcast, we're answering your questions about Disney World and Disney parks around the world, including tips for Lightning Lane, extended evening hours, and more. We've got a lot of questions to cover, so let's get to it. Hi-ho, everybody. This is Rob with Ear Scouts coming to you from our makeshift studio here in Celebration, Florida. As always, I'm joined here in Celebration by the other half of Ear Scouts, Eric. Hi-ho, Eric.
Hi-ho, everyone.
Eric will be keeping up with the live chat over at patreon.com if you'd like to join us live as we record each episode and gain access to the exclusive Patreon after party. Head on over to patreon.com/earscouts. I'm also joined this week by our friend Craig, who is also our Disney trivia guru. He's joining us as always from the great state of Indiana. Hi-ho, Craig.
Hi-ho, listeners.
And last but certainly not least, we are joined by Jessica, who is not in her home state of Connecticut. She's actually joining us from Hotlanta, which I hear is the home to a very important institution. Jessica, hi-ho.
Hi-ho, and let's go Jackets. All of you Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, I am in Atlanta, my alma mater. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually a Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech. Very excited to be home.
That's awesome. Well, I'm very excited that you took time to join us for this very special Q&A episode. So this is one of our MinnieCast episodes, which basically means it's going to be, well, theoretically, it's going to be a shorter episode. They don't always end up that way. Sometimes we just keep talking and it becomes a full episode, but it's intended to be a shorter episode where we just focus on some questions that have come in either on YouTube or on Patreon. We also have a forum at earscouts.com. There's a link there to our discourse forum. So if you have questions that you'd like us to answer in a future MinnieCast episode, just like this one, all you got to do is head over to any one of those places and leave your question in a comment, and we will hopefully be able to cover it in a future episode. One other thing we should mention, we are on a brand new YouTube channel right now. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere other than YouTube, nothing is changing. But if you're trying to find us on our regular Ear Scouts channel and you're not seeing the video podcast, just head over to earscouts.com/podcast. And that is going to be a quick link that'll take you straight to the new YouTube channel, which is where you're going to find all of the future video podcast episodes. So, Craig, let's just jump right into it. Why don't you start us off with our very first question of the week?
Yes, I have a question from Steve O.J., and they're asking, is it worth it to buy Lightning Lane multi-pass for Hollywood Studios if we're staying on property but can only get to the park in the afternoon because they fly in late that morning? Okay, so yeah, I totally believe it's a good idea, and here's why. Remember, you have that hour and 59-minute grace period after your Lightning Lane officially expires. So if you book a Lightning Lane for 11 a.m. to noon, you have until 1:59 to use it. And that's a great strategy for people who get to the park a little later because you don't have to worry about getting there. You look at that start time, and I think people tend to just panic and want to make sure they get there for that. But then you got a whole lot of time to get in there. So just remember that part.
So here's the thing specifically about studios. And I think studios is the perfect park to do this with because, as you're saying, you can only have one tier one attraction. But here at Ear Scouts, we like to do these decks of Lightning Lanes where the ace, is the ace of the deck is the most difficult to book Lightning Lane, the one you should get first. And then the king, queen, jack, and so forth are easier progressively to get. And if I'm not mistaken, the ace in that deck is Slinky Dog. But I'm pretty sure the king and the queen right now are actually both tier 2 attractions, aren't they?
Yeah. So Tower Terror, I think, is the queen.
Yeah, and I think the king is actually Toy Story Mania. So really, you could get 3 of the most difficult to book Lightning Lanes right off the bat because you could have that one tier 1 and those 2 really popular tier 2s. So I agree. I think it's worth doing. Our next question is from Bretonius on YouTube. Bretonius asks, what strategies do you recommend for non-ticketed extended hours at Epcot and Magic Kingdom? When do you get in line for big ticket attractions like Cosmic Rewind and Tron? Or do you? At what point do wait times go down during these events? So I would definitely recommend getting in line for those big ticket attractions at extended evening hours. For those who are not familiar with what he's asking about here, so there are two different kinds of after hours events at Disney World. There are the ticketed after hours events, which can just be as simple as the after hours that happen during usually like the summer and spring months, and those are just essentially you get bonus time in the parks that you pay extra for. It's a special kind of limited access event, so it won't be much lower crowd levels. But there's not usually a whole lot extra. At Magic Kingdom, for these ticketed versions, they'll have a special fireworks show. They'll bring back Enchantment. So you have the ability technically to see two fireworks shows in that evening. And then at Epcot, really there's not a lot super special going on at Epcot. I think they usually have like a DJ out or something, but it's not anything to speak of. But that's not what he's asking about. So that's one thing, ticketed after hours. He's asking about extended evening hours, which is a perk for resort guests staying at the deluxe hotels. So not moderates or value resorts, but any of the Disney DVC or deluxe resort hotels. It's usually one night a week at Magic Kingdom and usually one night a week at Epcot. You get an extra 2 hours in the park after the park closes. And by virtue of the fact that it's only there for guests staying at deluxe resorts, that does bring the crowd level down. In my experience, though, especially at Epcot, I don't find that it brings the crowd level down enough that you will find that you have super short waits on attractions like Guardians. The reason is because even though it's only limited to deluxe resort guests, there are a lot of deluxe resorts at Disney World. And with Epcot, there just aren't that many big ticket attractions that those guests are really excited to go do during the extended evening hours. So everyone ends up kind of crowding into Guardians, Test Track, and to a lesser extent, Remy and Frozen. Although I think now that Frozen has had its refresh that was just done, probably Frozen will also be have more interest than it has in the past. So your question about strategy is the main thing you want to think about is number one, don't do those big ticket things right as soon as extended evening hours begins. The reason for that is because you're going to have a mix at that point of day guests and folks who are there for extended evening hours. Because let's say the park closed at 9 o'clock. Day guests could get in line for those big attractions like Tron at 8:59. And then at that point, you've essentially got all the folks coming in after that for the extended evening hours, plus all the folks who are still there from the day. That's probably going to be the longest line you're going to encounter for those big ticket attractions right there at the beginning. The longer you wait into the evening, the more the day guests are going to be gone. It's just going to be extended evening hours. And also, a lot of extended evening hours guests, they only stay for the first hour or so. A lot of times it'll be families with younger kids who just can't really stay up quite that late. So I do find that the longer you wait, typically the wait times will come down. The exception to that is the two that you mentioned, Tron and Guardians. Those are just going to have long waits pretty much until the end of the event, unless you're just lucky and you're here at a time of year when the parks are kind of dead. But if you're here when it's busy, just choose to do, I would say choose to do it at the end of the night, just so that you're not burning up your extended evening hours time just in one line, right? If you do it towards the end, even though you're still probably going to have a longer wait, it won't be using up your extended evening hours time to do it. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I've only done extended evening hours at Magic Kingdom, and I'm going to tell you what you can do is you can get on and you can ride People Mover 3 times, and then you can ride Winnie the Pooh, and then you can leave, and it's perfectly happy. Like
All right.
literally, John and I rode People Mover. You can just say around again. We did that 3 times, and it was like the most honestly magical night ever. But that's not what people are asking. Nobody wants
Mhm.
to do that except for, but there may be other people like me. But the Tron line it was like an hour and a half long, even during extending evening hours. It wasn't, and that's why we thought we were going to stay, is to do Tron. And we looked at each other, we're like, not worth it. Just ride People Mover. I'd rather ride People Mover relaxing than stand in a line for an hour to ride Tron. So I don't know if that helps make the decision, but Tron did not go down
Yeah.
in time.
Eric, what do we got going on over on Patreon? Do we have any questions coming in from our Patreon family?
Not many questions right now, but I would like to add the comment from Jen. It amazes me how many people plan their whole trip around extended evening hours. They just keep buying multipass thinking they will get on everything during this period, and it's a big mistake.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If you're planning to do a lot of mid-tier attractions, especially at Magic Kingdom, you can do a ton, right? I mean, Jessica mentioned People Mover, but you could probably do Pirates. You could do definitely like Small World. You could probably, honestly, Peter Pan isn't usually too bad during extended evening hours because the target audience for that has kind of gone to bed. So there are a lot of attractions you can do, and you can pack in a lot. But if your goal is those big ones, which is what the question was about, yeah, it's still going to probably be long waits. And Epcot, Epcot is great if you want to do things like Spaceship Earth, if you want to do Soarin', if you want to do kind of those more mid-tier and lower tier in terms of popularity attractions, you can do a lot of those. But the big tickets, you just can't fit that many in.
And they
Yeah.
close, I'm sorry, you might have already said this, but they close World Showcase, right? So you have to walk
Yeah. They close.
Remy through Canada to Frozen. There's no
Yeah.
shortcut.
So basically, they close from Norway to France, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, because they basically close the parts of World Showcase that don't have attractions like rides. So Mexico has Grand Fiesta Tour, Norway has Frozen Ever After, and then on the other side you've got France has the Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. But since those ones in between, they have some shows, but those shows don't run during extended evening hours. So they close those pavilions, unfortunately. Yeah.
Which for Ray and Lauren, they were mentioning that Epcot does extended evening hours all wrong. They will really benefit from having the World Showcase open later. People will probably love getting food and drinks later in the night.
Yeah.
100%.
And it would honestly help them with the fact that so many people are crowded into those attractions because there's just not as much to do, right? If they had something fun going on, in some of those other countries of the World Showcase that would draw folks in, that would help with the wait times at those other attractions too.
I know,
But
run the
that's just,
shows in France and Canada and America and China. I mean, how much cast member does that really take to run those shows? And I mean, what the France was it Fest? I can't remember what the France show is, but the
Impressions de
one.
Impressions
France.
de
Thank you.
France. Yeah.
I mean, what a great opportunity to extend that run because you only can see it like twice a day.
Yep. That's your version of the People Mover for me is Impressions de
Mhm.
France. It's in Epcot. That's what I love to do at the end of the night is Impressions de
Yeah, and
France.
it'd be perfect.
Yeah. Craig, what is our next question?
Okay, I have a question from Cece who says, loved the new Animal Kingdom strategies video. Thank you. I'm glad you did. Does anyone know if Nomad Lounge is kid friendly? Is there room for a large group of 8 to 9 people to sit together, or will we have to split up into 2 groups? So, okay, Cece, I was just at Nomad Lounge a couple of weeks ago putting my personal Animal Kingdom ride strategy to the test, and I can say it worked out very well. So if you wanted some ride strategy, go back and listen to that video if you haven't already. But Nomad does have some larger tables inside that should fit up to 8 people, but maybe 9. They could squeeze another chair in there. But you should really get there well before they open so you can be first in line and hopefully score that table right when they open. because if you get put on a wait list, that might take a long time because I know they like sit smaller groups at that big table if they don't have larger groups, which is kind of rare. Now, as far as the outside goes, I don't know if they can move chairs and tables together. The chairs are really bulky out there as well. I don't think I've ever seen them do that. Has anyone else seen that?
So if you get
No.
seated in that, there's that one section where there's kind of like a couch and there's two chairs on the side. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? It's like,
Yeah.
I think so. You could probably fit, especially if you got some of them are kids, you could probably do 3 on the couch, 4 or 5. But then, and yeah, because the problem is if you put seating on the other side of that table, you're blocking the walkway that the cast members need to use to get through. So if you didn't do that table that Craig is suggesting, they'd probably break your party. My guess. I don't know. Maybe they can make it work, but they might break your party and have 2 seating areas that are close to each other out there on the patio. But
I
I'm
think
not
I've seen
sure.
them do like the table across from that seating area. Like there's that table on the wall. So like a table, but then that's still only maybe tops 8. It's
Yeah.
just not a lot of people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whenever you have a group that size, you're going to want to be moving around anyway. So, but as far as being kid friendly, I mean, I believe it is, unless someone else has a different opinion on that. But I think it's as kid friendly as anything. As far as food goes, it's a little more adventurous, I would say. So it just depends on if that's what your focus is. But yeah, of course, kids are welcome.
Yeah, I've definitely seen kids in there. I will say to me, I think the appeal of Nomad Lounge for adults is not going to be the same for like I think adults love the fact that it's this really relaxed vibe and you're enjoying the beauty of the natural surroundings and the really eclectic menu and cocktails. And obviously a lot of that is going to be probably lost, especially on younger kids. However, they do have the best churros in any Disney park in the world, so that might make up for it.
That's true.
But
Yeah, we've gone in for a 30-minute quick drink and left 3 hours later. Like I mean, it's like the time warp happens in that place and it is so beautiful. It's just it's one of the best. And I would say hidden gem. It seems like a lot of people go, but it still seems like not enough people talk about it.
well, Jessica, what is our next question from YouTube?
June Aiden Sorry 3467 asks, "What 2 Disney parks do you recommend when traveling with elderly parents?" And I think this is an interesting question. I'm not sure when you say elderly parents, exactly what we're talking about, but I'm going to assume you mean parents in scooters. Because I think that's kind of parents that are not able to like walk around on their own, and probably not able to ride as many rides. So that's the 2 kind of parts I'm going on this. And then if you guys have different opinions, you can jump in. I think Animal Kingdom is a great one. You can get on the safari with a scooter, actually. I think that's something that people don't know. They actually have a place for a scooter on some of the trucks. So I think that's great. I think Animal Kingdom is one where the shows, so both Festival Lion King and the Nemo show have places for scooters. They weren't going to ride Dinosaur or Everest, but you're still going to be able to have a good time inside of Animal Kingdom. There's lots of trails. Most of the trails you can get through. They have sections you can actually go with your scooter. So I think the Animal Kingdom to me is kind of a no-brainer. The second park, I thought about this a lot, and I'm going with Epcot in that I think World Showcase would be very interesting to people based on kind of what I'm used to, the food, the drink, the countries, the ability to get around, and then the more living with the land, Figment, and even if they could get on Soarin', to me, Soarin' is what does somebody say, everybody's parents' favorite ride. I think Soarin' just is perfect. Spaceship Earth, I feel like it has enough of the rides that parents would like. We talked about it a little bit on the last podcast, but Hollywood Studios is much more of a thrill ride place. It just doesn't have the rides that are like that. And Magic Kingdom skews younger kids in my mind. It just doesn't have. Now, I will say I will change from Epcot to Magic Kingdom if your elderly parents have a lot of nostalgia. If they're
Mhm.
huge on nostalgia, then I would do Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom. But
Yeah.
if
I was
they're
going to say the
going
one thing you don't want to have your parents doing is, where's the castle?
I know,
Mhm.
You
exactly.
didn't take him to the right park, so
So I didn't
check
take him to the right
first.
park. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of, like, that is something that you want to make sure you're taking them to the park that they want to see. You know, during Luminous, if they're expecting to see Tinkerbell fly, you're in the wrong place. You know what I mean? And I think that's important. But if they don't have the nostalgia, then I would do Epcot. If they have the nostalgia, then I would do Magic Kingdom. I think there's a good set of rides that they can do in Magic Kingdom as well. Um, but I do think Animal Kingdom is a no-brainer, and then not Hollywood Studios are the
Mhm.
kind of the way that I would go with that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Mhm.
I'm going to put in a vote for Magic Kingdom because I think, number one, as Craig said, the castle is kind of an iconic moment for folks visiting Disney World. But also think about the shows that you've got at Magic Kingdom. You've got Country Bears, you've got the Enchanted Tiki Room, you've got Carousel of Progress, which you were saying that the what was the show? Soarin' is every parent's favorite ride. I think probably Carousel of Progress is every parent's favorite show at Disney World. I think that's a great one. Um, and then in terms of attractions at the rides, you mentioned earlier the People Mover. I think is a great ride for
Mhm.
parents. I think you've also got rides like It's a Small World, Peter Pan's Flight, if assuming that they're able to move into the vehicle. Because I don't think that one doesn't accommodate scooters, I don't believe. But if you can transfer to the ride vehicle, I think that's a lovely one that parents would enjoy. So I think there's a lot in Magic Kingdom, but I think you're right, Jessica. It depends on what the parents' interests are, right? If they're interested in that classic Disney, then Magic Kingdom is it. If they're less taken with the Disney aspects of the trip, then Epcot for sure. Eric, I know you had some things you
Yeah.
wanted to add to that.
I mean, the thing is, like Jessica mentioned, like if they have a scooter, it's easy for them to go through Magic Kingdom. Now, if they don't, it's kind of like it's a hit or miss. I have heard multiple uh guests coming to the park and just asking for places to sit, and then realizing that, well, if they don't have a scooter, like if they are just like walking around, like it's very difficult for them to find spots like that. I will go with my vote for Animal Kingdom. I will vote for Animal Kingdom. It will be a nice. It's relaxing. It's not overwhelming.
One last thing I want to add to this question. We were assuming that they were asking about which parks at Disney World and not which Disney parks around the world were the best to go with parents. I do want to just mention, in the off chance that you were thinking about the different Disney parks around the world, definitely not Tokyo. Tokyo, I was surprised, was how it's not a very it's probably the least accessible of the Disney parks around the world. Lots of steps for lots of attractions. And that one was, I feel like that would have been a very challenging park. I do think Disneyland can also be a little bit more challenging if you need to use a scooter, don't you think? Because I feel like things are so tight at
Disneyland is
Disneyland.
not meant for scooters. It's
Yeah,
not meant for
it's
scooters.
Mm.
And even DCA
yeah.
is very difficult to get around. They have a lot of different path structures, whether it's wooden or cobblestone, or they're trying to mimic different, it's really cool from Imagineering, but from a scooter standpoint, like you go to San Francisco or you go to the pier, I can't imagine trying to take a scooter on those.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about the terrain at Animal Kingdom? I've never when I went with my parents, my mother was in a wheelchair, but we didn't go there. But the terrain, especially this last trip, I noticed how difficult it is. My feet and legs were killing me.
We took our stepfather to it was the only park we did was Animal Kingdom, and he was in a scooter. And the only issue that he had at Animal Kingdom was just, and this is going to be the same issue you're going to have at every Disney park, navigating the scooter with the crowds and just not wanting to hit anyone, but also like is a lot of stopping and going. And if you're not comfortable driving a scooter, it's a challenge. And that's true in all the Disney parks, not necessarily unique to Animal Kingdom. But
Yeah.
It is everywhere. We see it all the time in Magic Kingdom.
Eric, do we have anything else going on Patreon before we continue?
I would just like to add the comment from Heather. We took my mom to Magic Kingdom and Epcot, and she was on a scooter. She did well, was worn out by the end of the trip, but enjoyed seeing her granddaughter enjoying Disney.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Are you there with is it a multi-generational trip, right? Are you going to have grandkids there with grandma? That's also, I think, a big consideration. And then that's probably another vote for Magic Kingdom. Well, our next question is from Wendy on Patreon. And she asks, I have a single pass lightning lane booked for Guardians this week. The start time of my window is 4:15. My question is, do earlier times ever show up for single pass lightning lanes on the day of? And she asks, should she try playing the Disney slots, which is what we essentially call the act of refreshing the view in the app to see if something earlier pops up so you can tap in and grab it. I like to liken that to playing a slot machine game on your phone because you're spinning the reels on the slot machine and hoping to hit a jackpot. And that is definitely worth doing with single pass for sure. In fact, I find that when it comes to the most popular attractions, single pass is usually easier to get a lightning lane for on the day of than the most popular multi-pass attraction. So at studios, I would see Rise of the Resistance pop up a lot more than I ever saw Slinky Dog Dash pop up. Same thing over at Magic Kingdom. I would always, especially Mine Train is pretty easy to get day of. Tron, if you keep an eye on it, pretty easy. So I think I haven't really tried it much with Guardians. Have you guys had any success getting Guardians day of?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I did it this last week, so it's just like I realized I hadn't ridden Guardians, and I was able to grab one. So
Yeah.
it's pretty
So
easy.
I think, yeah, I would say don't sweat it. You're probably going to be able to modify it on the day of. And that's the other thing that's great with single pass. This is a special superpower of single pass. A lot of people don't know. With single pass, you can not only modify the time, you can modify the day. So let's say that you didn't end up getting the time that you wanted. You couldn't find it and you weren't happy with that 4:15, but you were maybe going to use it on another day of your visit at Epcot. You could modify it to a different day. This is probably not something you're interested in, but you can even modify it to a different person. So let's say you didn't get around to riding Guardians, but you had some friends who were going to still be in the parks in the days later. You could actually transfer your lightning lane as long as it hadn't expired or been used. You can actually transfer that to someone else in your friends and family group, which is a pretty cool thing that you can do with single pass. I think a lot of folks don't realize. Craig, what is our next question?
Okay, I have a question from earscouts.com from Erin Perry, who had several questions about her rather unique situation coming up this summer. So, Erin was very thorough. She gave us lots of information about her particular situations, which we love. Um, so, the more information we have, the better we can tailor the answer to what you really want to know. So, to save a little time, I'm going to paraphrase a lot of what she's asking. So, Erin is going to Disney World in August with her husband and two kids, aged 4 and 6. Her parents are also joining them. Their unique situation is her group is staying off site while her parents are staying at French Quarter. So, they'll have full resort privileges. They also, and I believe this is a very smart thing, they put the two kids on the grandparents' reservation. So that way, at least four of them have the uh, the perks of staying there. Um, and also, they wanted to purchase the dining plan for the kids because it was free and take advantage of that perk. So they ended up getting uh, the dining plan for just the four people. And we're going to talk about that later. But so Aaron's first concern was about dining reservations. one perk for the Disney Resort's guests is they can reserve dining at the 60-day mark for the entire length of their stay. So the good news is the parents can go ahead and book that for the whole stay, but they can make the table for 6. That's not a problem at all. You can add people who don't even have park tickets and don't have reservations. Yeah, they don't care about that for the restaurants. So that was easy. So Erin's next concern was all about Lightning Lane MultiPass. Since her parents will be able to book 7 days before their arrival, and they will only have 3 days, she feels very confident. She said, about 25 times with her parents. So she feels pretty confident playing the slots, modifying selections. And it's also considering using an app like Weight Magic to help with the Lightning Lanes. So here's a tip I will give on this one. So when you purchase your park tickets, you can bump the start date earlier than your actual arrival date. So for instance, if they were to purchase a 7-day ticket, they would have an actual 10-day window to use those 7 days. So if you choose a day to start your ticket earlier than your actual arrival, that essentially gives you 3 extra days. So say you're planning on staying off property and your dates are August 4th through the 10th. If you purchase your multi-day ticket to start on August 1st, that ticket will still be good until the 10th, and then you can start booking your Lightning Lanes 3 days before August 1st. So your parents would still have a 1-day advantage on that, but this will give you a little more advantage. One thing I will say about that is you got to watch the prices, though, if you're going to play that, and compare, because sometimes if you do back it up, that start day may be more expensive than your actual arrival day or anything in between. It could be a couple bucks. It could be, I just did a quick one. It was like over $30 difference, just backing it up 3 days. So it just depends. But make sure you look at that as well. She also asked if members of her party could use each other's magic bands to tap into Lightning Lanes. And the answer is, I wouldn't try it. I think we discussed this on an earlier podcast, and you could get kicked out of the park for that. That's correct?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Never use someone else's magic band for anything, really. But certainly not for taking advantage of one of their perks.
I will say, I will just say that what I've done is we've had a Lightning Lane for someone in my party that decided not to ride. And I've gone up to the cast member and said, "Hey, I'm just going to use their magic band to scan them in. They're not riding."
Yes.
I've told the cast member what I'm doing. That's the only time is to scan them in, but they're not there. I have done that when someone, and I'm going to say chickened out, but that's not appropriate. But you know what I mean? They made the appropriate decision for their own body to not ride a ride, and I use their magic band. That's the only time, though. I agree with Craig, though. I wouldn't use the magic band.
And that's why I said especially if you're using it to get a perk that someone else has. So if you were using their Lightning Lane, that would be a big no-no. But if you're just using it to just basically clear them, and people do that all the time, you just let the cast member know that's what you're doing, that they're not riding and they just need to tap in. That's usually okay. But again, even when you do that, make sure you tell the cast member that's what you're doing. But continue, Craig.
Yeah, so this brings up my next questions about transportation, because as a family, they all want to take Disney transportation to the parks. Now, they will have a car between the two groups, and Erin was wondering if her party, her husband, the 2 kids, were to use the car, could they get into French Quarter with one of their parents' magic bands?
Actually, you don't even need to worry, because as long as you are a guest of someone who is staying at the resort, you're allowed to park at the resort to come as a guest of a guest of the resort. I've done that frequently. A lot of times we'll have family members who come to visit, and they'll stay in a resort hotel, and I just go to the guard, and as long as I can tell the guard the name of the guest that I'm visiting and the room that guest is in, and they can verify it, I've never had them not allow me to park there and go right up to the room and spend the day with my friends and family who are visiting.
Will R in our Patreon group asked, he has a planning question for my 6-year-old daughter's first trip to Walt Disney World, and congratulations. We were planning to do Akershus late breakfast on our Epcot morning. But due to when we could get the boutique, now he's talking about Bibbidi Bobbidi, but due to that, we now have a late afternoon boutique with a Cinderella Royals table dinner afterwards on the same day. Should we still do Akershus that morning, or is that a princess character meal overload with CRT also booked? If we didn't do Akershus, I already have a Via Napoli booked for lunch. So I'm going to start out with my recommendation, and then you guys can jump in, and maybe Eric has some specific feelings on this, but I do think it's not that it's princess character overload, it's time overload. Your Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique takes a while, and it's been some time, but I think at least an hour probably for Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique.
It depends. As far as I know, like if you already know what you're getting, like if you know what your kid is trying to get, like which kind of dress they are aiming for, it will be like super easy. Just because like they have that limited like options. If you
Mhm.
have checked like the options like in advance, again, it's just basically like them choosing, them doing the experience. The experience can take like between, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes. And
Wow, I
yeah,
didn't know you could do hair that fast.
yeah. So
I can't
again,
do hair that
it
fast.
depends. It depends, but it should be like between 15 to 20 minutes. And again, just like uh, let's say that you are taking a long time in the boutique choosing the items, it can take like 20 minutes. Let's say like at the end of the day, it can be 40. I would, again, if you already know what you want.
Okay, so maybe between 30 and 40 minutes probably is after you get your picture taken and all of those things. And then you're going to do Cinderella's Royal Table, which is another at least hour at Cinderella Royal Table.
Mhm.
That's a lot of time in a day. And I would just say it's not wasting. It's really important time, particularly for a 6-year-old princess. It's a great amount of time. But then to also do Akershus, which is another hour long, an hour long meal, you're taking up a lot of time that you could be riding rides and meeting characters. And I think that's the key. You're also going to have almost a duplicate or close to a duplicate of princesses. So there's a couple different princesses, but it's almost a duplicate of princesses. So I personally think those two meals, although for totally different reasons, I think either one of them for a 6-year-old princess is a great character interaction. I would not choose to do them on the same day. I think you will lose the magic of one or the other. And Cinderella's Royal Table after Bibbidi Bobbidi and having your makeup done and that is a very magical experience. I think you're bringing it down by already have doing Akershus and maybe diminishing some of the magic of that. What you guys think?
I'm going to add one thing to that I'm going to speak euphemistically here, but the other issue you could potentially run into is
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
certain princesses have different friends, right?
Mhm.
That
Oh,
if it's and when you do a table service meal, there's a long extended interaction typically that can be very personal. And especially if you've got a little girl who is very excited about meeting a particular princess, if there's a different friend of that princess the next time later in that same day, I think it could possibly take a little magic off of the experience. And so, I mean, I
that's an
think that
excellent point.
you know your princess better than anyone, so you know how she's going to react to that. But I think it is something to think about because there will
That's
be
an excellent
yeah.
Yeah.
point.
I was gonna bring that up too, but I was just wondering, like, is there an age where, like, the kids know that they have different friends? Or I guess that's for
Yeah,
you,
and
I,
Jessica.
I think
yeah.
I mean, what Rob is saying is 100% correct. I think my daughters uber noticed different friends for Mulan because Belle is a huge Mulan fan and was uber focused. They had 2 different friends of Cinderella and didn't even notice. But I think and I noticed because I see the pictures and you can see them side by side, but they were very confused about different friends, and particularly at 5, if their dream is to meet a certain princess and they meet that princess and they look different in the same day, that might be hard. That's a great point. I didn't even think about, because in my world, you're really meeting. I can't. It doesn't even contemplate that. But that's a great point.
Right.
It's the other benefit, like from doing the boutique experience, though, is that that's one of like that's the only way that you can meet the fairy godmother. So like that's definitely like if the fairy godmother is very important for you as well, like that's once again that's the only way to do it. And honestly, like it's a very magical experience, and the room is just beautiful.
We have time for one last question from Robert Spangers on YouTube, who asks, well, first, before he asks, he said, "Great shirt, Eric. Donald is my favorite character." I'm guessing Eric appeared in that video wearing his Donald Duck jersey, is my guess. But Donald is, of course, number one. So we agree. He's the best. You guys mentioned that the beginning of a festival is normally really busy. How long does the first peak normally take? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And the thing is, this depends so much on so many variables. Number one, which festival are we talking about? Because the longer festivals, I feel like you don't get as much local rush beyond the first week or two. It kind of dies off pretty quickly because locals know they have a lot of time to go see Flower and Garden. And a lot of locals like to come later for Flower and Garden because those flowers continue to blossom and the topiaries change. So Flower and Garden, I would say first couple weeks, probably you see higher than normal crowds, specifically for Epcot for the festival. For Food and Wine, similarly, that festival goes on forever and a day. And so first couple weeks, you'll probably see increased crowds, but then it'll kind of die off. The thing is, the other two, Festival of the Holidays and Festival of the Arts, are so short that it's really hard to predict. It really, I would have expected with Festival of the Arts that it was going to die off after the first couple weeks, but we were there and it didn't. It was partly because I think there were other factors in play, and this is the other thing you need to look at. Is there a holiday weekend, right? Because that's going to bring more people to the parks, including locals, and a lot of folks love to go to those festivals on holiday weekends. Other thing is there a Run Disney weekend, especially a Run Disney event that ends at Epcot? Because that is going to bring a huge number of people into the park for that. So in general, I would say it's less predictable for arts and holidays, but later is probably better. And then for Flower and Garden and for Food and Wine, assuming you don't have other variables in place like holiday weekends or an event like Run Disney, first couple weeks is usually probably good. Once that's passed, probably going to return to normal. Anybody have any other thoughts on that?
The only other thing I'll say is for Food and Wine and Flower and Garden, there are some specific bands, and I'm blanking on their names because it's
Boys to Men was a big
Boys to
one.
Men,
Boys to Men was a big one. Yeah.
Boys to Men. There's certain bands that appear like every year at those two festivals that it will peak. So, and I just warn people of that. If you see a name and you think, "Oh, I've always wanted to see so and so," so do tens of thousands of people. So just understand that will make a festival peak, and the more popular names are always Friday and Saturday. They're always Friday and Saturday, so it's always this huge peak. And we made the mistake of being there. It was like Air Supply, a version of Air Supply, like a couple of the original people plus some cover artists. It was the most crowded I've ever seen that American Pavilion. So just be aware of that. And that happens for Flower and Garden and Food and Wine specifically, because that's when they get I'm going to say the pop rock bands.
Well, with that, we have no time, sadly, for further questions. But if you would like to have your question answered in a future podcast episode, just leave your question as a comment on one of our YouTube videos or head over to earscouts.com, leave your question in the forum, or you can, of course, join us live at patreon.com/earscouts, and you can just ask your question at a future taping of a podcast episode. But now we're going to end the show as we always do with Happy Thoughts, which is our little segment where we like to share something positive that's going on in the world that we wanted to leave you with today. Craig, why don't you start us off? What is your happy thought this week?
Okay, so last week my happy thought was the new Muppet Show reboot on Disney Plus starring Sabrina Carpenter, and I hadn't watched it yet, and then I did watch it, and they nailed it. This like I remember watching it in the 70s, so it's like it took me right back to my old little 12-year-old self. It was just like they never stopped. It was I mean, the tone, everything just was perfect. Um, no notes. And for me to say no notes is a big deal. I rarely ever say that, but something that I was excited about when it came through like that, I could not be happier.
Awesome. I agree. I loved it. I thought it was
Mm.
so great. Jessica, what is your happy thought this week?
So my happy thought is, I don't know, there was a sports ball game. We won't talk about the sports ball, but we won't talk about the sports ball results. But we will talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu commercial, the trailer that was and oh my gosh, it was like a spin of a Budweiser commercial, but with tauntauns, and it was so cute. I was so excited, and I was like, it was like 20 seconds, and it was just an overhead, but they made him look like the Clydesdales, and they're running, and it's just, and Grogu, and he puts his little hand on their nose. Oh, my little heart, I just loved it.
Awesome. Eric, what is your happy thought this week?
Well, as Rob mentioned, since our uh, next cruise is coming, he just sent to he just got some magnets. Um,
Oh my
well, of course,
gosh.
like I have a coda on it, and Rob has to have the genie.
So for
So
those who are not watching on YouTube or on Patreon, Eric is holding up some porthole magnets. This is a whole thing. If you don't know about magnets on doors, go watch the new video we have on Ear Scouts about Disney cruises. But it's a big deal to have magnets on your cruise door. And there's one of Coda that says Eric, and it's like Coda inside of a porthole. And then the other is the genie, and it says Rob. Yeah.
and it has a um, marine hat, which is super cool.
So if you were planning to go on a Disney cruise, we got those. I ordered those from Etsy. There was an Etsy shop where you could just tell them what Disney character you wanted in the porthole and the name you wanted associated with it, and they just make it for you. They do all the work. So uh, that was a. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. I'm glad that was your happy thought this week. For me, my happy thought this week is kind of related to, I think my happy thought last week was about the new CEO, right? At Disney.
Mhm.
And I was just looking ahead at the year that we're about to have. I feel like this is going to be a really great year for Disney. I mean, we're going to have the new Toy Story movie. We're going to have The Mandalorian and Grogu, as Jessica was mentioning. We have Hoppers, which is, I think, going to be a big hit for Pixar, which they really need. They haven't had original IP that's been a big hit in a little while, and just a lot of really exciting things coming. Plus, of course, in the parks, we just found out not only are there going to be the new faces, the new animatronic faces on the characters in Frozen Ever After, but there's actually some other plus ups that they've added as surprises throughout the attraction. I can't wait to go experience that. Big Thunder's going to reopen with some new surprises. So if you're a Disney fan, I feel like this is going to be a great year, and we're going to have so much fun stuff to look forward to. So, I don't know. My happy thought this week is that I was looking at what Bob Iger is leaving, essentially, as his legacy, the things that he was working on, as he passes the baton to Josh Tomorrow. So last week my happy thought was that Josh Tomorrow is starting, and we have hopeful things to look forward to. But this week's happy thought is just what a great spot we're in, as Bob Iger passes that baton, and great job on what I think is going to be a really exciting year to be a Disney fan. So with that, we will see our Patreon friends and family at the after party. But for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again next week. And until then, don't forget to think happy thoughts, everybody.